Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm the Housewife Historian, and we are here to talk the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I'm going to be talking a little bit in code today because if you watch my channel and you watch my live, yes.
Is the plane going down? Are we gonna die? Why are you saying I'm sorry?
Hey guys, so welcome back to my channel. I am Lindsay, the Housewife Historian, and today we're talking Real Housewives of New Jersey, and we're talking Juicy Joe Giudice because we just got the second part from David Yontev's Behind the Velvet Rope interview, and again, we are brought back to another question about the FBI and the feds and his ex-business partner. His ex-business partner has now spoken, and there's several different articles that the ex-business partner, I think he might have spoken to maybe a couple of different outlets. Likely, I'm sure that he was getting paid for his story, so he took advantage of the opportunity because he makes it very clear that he feels like they took advantage of him and that they owe him still a lot of money. And that doesn't totally make sense because we know there was restitution involved in their case, and that the restitution was allegedly paid the 3 years while Joe Giudice was serving. Teresa was paying off both of their restitution. So we're going to get into some of that, guys, hear what the ex-business partner had to say, and then we're going to maybe break some of that down. But before we get started, make sure that you guys hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, turn your notifications on. It's super important to have your notifications on because when I get hot tea, I just come on live. I bring it to you guys before I take it to any of my other outlets like TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And also, guys, I'm going to be live with Martinis with Eddie tonight, right after the Real Housewives of New Jersey Part 3 reunion. We did a live last week and we had a really great time. So a lot of people, my subscribers, enjoyed it, and I loved that some of you guys came over and supported me on his channel, because that's super nice whenever people that are like your subscribers go and support you on other channels. It just shows, how loyal people are. So I appreciate that, guys. But let's get into this article talking about Joe Giudice's ex-business partner, because I think he might be foolish a little bit. Okay, so this is from Celebrity Buzz. This is saying Joe Giudice's ex-business partner has a lot to say. Into addition of spilling whether the Gorgas put Teresa and Joe into prison, he said he never met Melissa Gorga and claims the Giudices owe him over $980K. So first of all, this is the ex-business partner whose attorney was Monica, the woman that you keep hearing about, Monica. She was actually in season 2 and season 3, guys. So it's really hard to believe that this was your attorney. Allegedly, they were dating. And I'm not sure if that's true or not. But regardless, your attorney was in season 2 and season 3 of The Real Housewives of New Jersey. You know Joe Gorga, but oh, sorry, not to that part yet. But he says he's never met Melissa. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Number one, Monica was at the Posh Fashion Show, and she introduced herself very proudly as the attorney suing Joe and Teresa Giudice. Season 3, she's actually allegedly invited by production and Melissa to the Christmas party where earlier that day, Teresa and her had gotten into it on the steps of the courthouse or somewhere along those lines, because Monica was responsible for taking a lot of the evidence that inevitably that was used to prosecute Joe and Teresa. So let's get into this a little bit more. He says, Joe Giudice's former business partner, Joe, it's like, I don't care if you guys, do you want his last name? You want his last name? Okay, to be official, it's Mastropole, has spoken out about Teresa Giudice's recent claim that Melissa and Joe Gorga are the reason that Teresa and Joe Giudice ended up behind bars. And I hate that the article names it like that, because again, it's like they're just trying to be so disrespectful about it. Again, just whenever people go to prison, it is traumatic. Teresa is clearly traumatized from the experience. And again, we saw that this season when the ladies were at her bachelorette party and they were asked to sort of draw her life. And she literally had to ask them, please don't say anything about prison. Like, I just don't want to talk about it. So it's like a constant dig. And I see that in the comments too. And the handcuff bracelets, another example of basically, what is the word I'm looking for? It's like not a, I can't think of the word. Like your bias almost. Like I am starting to feel like New Jersey housewives are super biased about mental health, incarceration. Like Margaret Josephs is all about women's rights. Well, what about the women that are incarcerated? What about their families? What about all these other situations? Like I just think that Margaret had a mother who drank and went out and partied, and she's carried a resentment about that for her entire life. And it's sad because resentments keep you sick. They keep you sick, right? So she constantly is kind of putting her mother down. And I don't think her mom says anything because she feels, one, like maybe she deserves it, which she doesn't. Maybe her mom is someone who might have been considered an alcoholic at one time, but like now she drinks socially or something. But it seems like Margaret kind of put her on blast on the show. If you guys remember, she wasn't super nice about what it was like growing up with Marge Sr. to be her mom. And she made a lot of jabs. And then also, if we saw her on the Jeff Lewis show, like, oh my gosh, she was really mean to her mom on the Jeff Lewis show. Like, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm being for real. Like, if Jeff Lewis calls you an asshole, bro, you're an asshole. Like, they were talking about Marge Sr. dating and like dating online or something like that. And Marge Jr. says, well, Marge Jr. has real bad teeth. So I'm getting her new teeth, just so you know. And he's like, what? And she's like, he's like, why would you say that? Like, I didn't even, it's just like, oh, well, it's fine. I'm just saying, I want everyone to know, like, we're getting her new teeth. So don't let that be. And like, Marge Sr. just sat there and took it. Like, she felt like she must have deserved it or something. That is very much the impression that I got. I don't know if anyone else felt like that during that scene. If you saw that clip of the Jeff Lewis show, I posted it. And again, not to be an asshole, but I feel like I'm starting to correlate like why Margaret calls Jennifer a raging drug addict, why Margaret does some of the things that she does, like why she's so triggered by Jennifer when Jennifer drinks. Jennifer gets drunk, Margaret's very triggered by that, right? And I think it's really from her childhood. And I think that we see her not so nice to her mother, and almost like she deserves it. So I don't know what we're going to see coming up this season. We don't know what producers are going to do, but I really hope that they're not bringing Jen Fessler back full time. I think that she is okay in small quantities, and I think it's going to be very boring if they bring her on and she is just blindly loyal to Margaret. It was boring when she was on Watch What Happens Live because every question they asked her, she just kept pledging her allegiance to Margaret. So that is all I have to say about that. Moving on about Joe Gorga, back to Joe Giudice's business partner. So he says, that's bullshit. I've never met Melissa in my entire life, he told The Sun. If I saw her, I wouldn't even recognize her. Well, if you never met her, how would you not recognize her? Like, don't you just recognize people you know? Whatever. Okay. Hold on, let me finish. I know Joe Gorga, but don't know Melissa at all. I know Joe as a friend. That's all. But Joe and Melissa have been married for like over 2 decades. Okay. I could understand if maybe you knew Joe Gorga from way back, right? But he's literally been with Melissa for over 20 years. So that would basically have to say that like you knew Joe Gorga before he got with Melissa. That would be what somebody like him, if you had only met Joe Gorga and were friends with him before he got married and you had never met Melissa, you wouldn't say things like, I wouldn't even recognize her today if I seen her. You only recognize people that you know, right? I'm just saying, like, and then that would mean that you would have had known Joe Gorga before he married Melissa and then never seen, talked to him, ran into him, went out with him, had drinks with him, were at the club, or did anything else with Joe Gorga ever again, because we all know what did Joe and Melissa always tell us, that they were both very jealous, especially when they first got married, and that because of that reason they agreed not to go out without each other. And that did allude to some of the issues, I think, between Joe Gorga and his sister Teresa, because Joe Gorga couldn't do anything without Melissa, and that's hard if you have a brother that used to hang out with you and you guys could be one-on-one and be relaxed, and then gets married and you can't ever be alone with him again. So then the ex-business partner says, but Melissa, maybe I met her at Joe's house way back, maybe 1 or 2 times. That's what I thought. I wouldn't even know what she looked like if I bumped into her. I wouldn't even know who she was. He claimed that Teresa may have alleged that they hung out simply because Teresa's always looking for a fight with somebody. Yeah, that's it, sure. I haven't been in touch with Joe or Teresa in 8 years. I don't even watch the show. It makes me sick, he told The Sun. So he says, claims Teresa may have alleged that they hung out because Teresa's always looking to fight with somebody. Here's the thing, guys. This man's not going to come on here and be like, oh, yeah, Joe and Melissa, they gave me lots of evidence. Joe recorded Joe Giudice behind his back and he gave me perfect tape. Or Monica said we had everything we needed except maybe, Joe Giudice on video or audio talking about how he maneuvers this or that. I mean, could have been anything, but he's not going to say that, okay? People who rat out other people typically don't come out and say, hi, my name is, what's his name? Hold on. Because if this is basically what we would be anticipating. What is this man's name? Ex-business partner. What is this man's name? Hold on. Let me find. Oh, okay, Joe Mastropole. He would basically have to go to The Sun and be like, hey, I'm Joe Mastropole, and yeah, that's right. I definitely went to the feds and the IRS, and I gave them a bunch of tax returns and papers, and but first I got my attorney and let her investigate it for 2 years, and she collected a bunch of stuff, and yeah, we were hanging out with Joe Gorga, and he was getting me evidence, and they're not going to talk like that. They're not going to admit to turning anyone into the feds or the IRS, right? For the fact of why? What did we learn this season? Nobody wants to be a rat in New Jersey, right? They called Rachel a rat for telling Margaret what Danielle said. Do you remember? And they were like, a rat is the worst thing you can really be called in this area. Because, and what do you get called when you snitch on people and you narc people out? You're called a rat. So just on street principle, street cred, whatever you want to call it, you don't go around giving interviews telling them that you cooperated with the federal government or the IRS to help put somebody's mother in prison and somebody's father in prison for 3.5 years. And then that resulted in a deportation. Okay, this is why you don't take karma into your own hands, because you will mess things up. The whole point of karma is that it comes back around when it's supposed to, because God has perfect divine timing and we reap what we sow, okay? But when you start taking karma in your own hands and you start handing out punishments like you have the authority to do so because you got taken, it doesn't end good. Now he has had to live with the fact that his girlfriend, Monica, his attorney, his associate, whatever, they were in cahoots to turn Joe Giudice and Teresa in because this man was pissed, okay? Let me remind you guys of something. There were 2 different times that you'll see Joe Laredo go up to Joe Giuseppe and say something about somebody saying that he owed them money. And the first time that Chris did it, Juicy Joe was like, get out of here. Like, you don't even know what he's talking about. And then the next time we see that conversation, again, Chris approaches Juicy Joe, and Juicy Joe says, you know what? Tell dude to go get effed, basically. Okay. And again, this correlates when I say that Melissa and Joe Gorga were brought on the show to talk about Teresa and Joe Giudice's finances. Because if the IRS and the federal government, okay, was watching the show, and Teresa and Juicy Joe were so blatant that they were watching, then you don't think production was getting wind? Danielle calls the bankruptcy on camera to Teresa, and Teresa's reaction is to chase her through the country club. The only people that would have had the information that Bravo wanted about finances, their only in, was Teresa's brother, because Juicy Joe's family is terribly loyal. Terribly, terribly loyal. We know that Bravo approached them, that they approached Joe Giudice's brother and sister-in-law. And even though the sister-in-law and Teresa didn't get along, they didn't get along amazing, okay? But they still refused to go on the show. They wouldn't do it. None of his family would do it, okay? We're talking about Juicy Joe's family. His dad mooned the paparazzi one day on the way home from court, okay? They don't give enough. They don't play like that, okay? But when Bravo pivoted and took a look at Teresa's family, they had a weakness. They had a weak one. They had Melissa, who was desperate to be on camera, to be seen, to be heard, to be fancy, to be rich, to be famous, to be everything that Teresa already was. Is what Melissa wanted. And you could see it. You can see it when you look back and watch. If you go back and watch the season that they came on, you may be floored, but it's very obvious. It's very, very obvious. And we know from the blogs that she attended events at the Brownstone, and she knows that they would be filmed, that she would hang out around the cameras, that she wanted to get the attention of production. She wanted on the show. And by the time Teresa was like in season, going after season 2, allegedly the Gorgas were really, really in debt at that point, like over $100,000 on like a credit card. And, I think that if Joe Gorga would have had his empire at that time and he had enough money to say, I don't care about that show, like I love my family more, I don't think that he would have done the show. But I think that he had a lot of pressure put on him, whether it was direct or indirect, whether it was intentional or not intentional. There was a lot of pressure of him to keep up with everyone else, right? And his wife was all about that. So I think that he was like, well, I mean, this is our only chance. Like, I mean, I'm basically selling my soul to the devil, like basically signing everything over. Like, I know it's gonna ruin my family. Look at what's going on with Caroline Manzo's family. Like, nobody's speaking, and we know that the producers want us to bring drama, and they know that, I mean, look at the chaos that just the christening caused. The Gorgas and Giudices were fighting each other. Okay, I always say Juicy Joe's mom punched Melissa's sister. She's an older woman, not an old woman, just a mature woman. Be going around punching people. I love it. I mean, these are people ripping their microphones off. Like, it was crazy. So you can't think that after a scene like that, as their first scene, the first time Teresa and Joe were seeing each other after Joe and Melissa signed, and Teresa had no idea. And just because they were late to the church, they had 4 kids. Well, 3. Okay, they were late to the church. They had 3 kids. Like, I often wonder how the hell Teresa could keep herself makeup and hair, camera ready, plus 3 kids together, bows and hair, dresses, matching clothes, dressed together. And then her husband, because, I'm sure she dressed Juicy Joe isn't one to, I'm sure Teresa dressed him and got him all the way together, because that was her wifely duty. But I also wonder, like, damn, after getting your 3 kids ready, get your husband ready, and then get yourself ready for the cameras. Yeah, you're lucky she was only an hour late. I probably would have been like, showed up. The christening would have been over probably by the time I got there with 3 kids. Like, I'm not joking. So I'm just saying, something to consider. Let me get back to this article. So he says, Oh, then he goes on. Okay. He says, I haven't been in touch with Teresa or Joe in 8 years. I don't even watch the show. It makes me sick. He claimed a civil lawsuit back in 2009 that Joe and Teresa forged his name on documents before they served time in prison. They screwed me. I didn't screw them. And I didn't really put them in jail, he said. He said, I didn't really put them in jail. What he means is their actions ultimately put them in jail, but he helped put the feds and the IRS onto them to investigate those actions. And just because those actions came back as unlawful, he didn't really put them in jail. He said, I went to the bankruptcy hearing just to protect my interest. I didn't want to put them in I didn't want to put them in jail. I just wanted my money. Sounds like somebody who put them in jail, just saying. I make my own money. I'm not going to let nobody steal it next time, Joe said. He claims that the two owe him some serious cash. I got nothing. I got zero, he alleged. I lost $980,000 and $300,000 in attorney fees, so it cost me $1 million. They owe me $980K. I put up the money for the 3 properties that they rented out, and I never got nothing. I give up, he revealed. They ruined my life. I've had 5 strokes, and my mother lost her house because of them. I'm getting older. I don't need the aggravation. I don't want another stroke. I just want to live in peace. That's all. As for Joe, he says, I don't give a shit what he does. He should be ashamed of himself. So I'm surprised he didn't call me up and at least tell me sorry. He screwed my life, my mother's life, and took all my money. Come on, man, he added. Don't you have a heart? He also shared his thoughts on Teresa's current husband. I don't know the guy. Never heard of the guy. Never met the guy. I know nothing. Also a little weird too. I don't know. That sounds a little sketch to me. But maybe he got a little bit of money out of the interview, so that's cool. I don't know if he really is having money problems. I don't know. Maybe I don't think that I think if Juicy Joe was doing bad business practices, like the stuff was falling off the truck or whatever you want to say. Like they wanted the show to be somewhat a little bit like Mob Wives from VH1. Like if you go back and watch, they were clearly making it like these women were like gangster wives a little bit, not, but a little bit like the fur coats. And I just don't think they were mad about it. Right. So that's just my opinion. I wanted to read that article with you guys. Let me know what you think. I mean, I hope that that's not the case. Again, let me just reiterate the fact that it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense that they owed him all that money because of the fact that it would have been in restitution. And to talk a little bit about restitution. So Teresa and Joe, I don't know how, I think they might have had $6 million in restitution, bankruptcy. Regardless, when Teresa got out of prison, Joe went to prison, right? And she worked that whole time. There's 3 years, and she ended up paying off all of their restitution. There's clips of her saying that. Maybe there's issues right now with some kind of tax with her business. I'm not sure. I'm not really privy to what's going on with that, but I just know that there were several different times Teresa told us that she paid for all of her restitution, and she also took care of Juicy Joe's restitution. And that clearly makes sense, guys, because here's the thing. If you owe $6 million, they're not going to let you off APA. Probation or parole. They want to keep an eye on you until you pay it because they don't want you to just get off with it. So if you owe a significant amount of money in restitution, part of owing that money is going to be that you are going to have to continue reporting or be on a non-reporting or be in a call-in monthly, whatever the case may be, to show that you're current with your restitution, so that if you do not become current with your restitution, then the court can step in, right? Because I'm not really sure because that wouldn't make, because of what then would hold people to paying their restitution, unless if it just really would depend on who the restitution was owed for. But most 99% of the time, you're not going to be let off APA, probation, or parole if you owe a significant amount of money. video. Also, because what happens is when you go to prison, because going to prison is not free, it actually costs you money. They charge you for the ride to prison, and they take it off of your books. We talk about the prison visitation list and why it's so important, because the prison visitation list are the only people allotted to put money on the inmate's account books. Okay. And in prison, that's basically the inmate's checking account, if you will. There's not really a limit on how much you can put on somebody's books. We heard rumors about the fact that R. Kelly ended up having like, I thought I read somewhere close to like $25,000 was on his books, and he had like $24,000 in restitution owed somewhere, and they took that shit. That's completely normal. When you go from the county to prison, they'll deduct your ride to prison. And if you owe restitution, they'll take everything off of your books except for maybe like $5. And they will continue to take everything off of your books until that restitution and ride to prison is paid for. This is why you will see people. I don't want to say, like, there was that Murdoch trial, and people were kind of analyzing his prison inmate phone calls. So a lot of times what will happen is somebody who's on legal, which is the term used for when the state or the government takes the money off of your books and puts it towards your restitution and legal fees. That's called legal. So you're not ever going to have money to be able to go to commissary, because you can't have any money on your books because they take it. So you would have to find somebody else who's not on legal and maybe doesn't get a lot of money. And you say, hey, I'll give you $20 out of every 100 my fiance puts on my books. And then that's how you would do it. Right. So then you would, hey, I need you to get in touch with someone that's on her approved visitation list and give them the money, and then they put it on her books, is typically how it works. Like family to family, they have to do that sort of thing. I know a lot about how prison operates. It's a whole nother world. It really is, guys. It's nothing like, maybe a little bit like the Orange is the New Black. I did meet Piper in person. She was lovely, but not as motivational as I would have anticipated. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up. I hope that you guys have a great Tuesday. And we'll be chatting soon. Again, find me tonight on Martins with Eddie after the Real Housewives of New Jersey reunion part 3.